We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
And so he totally owned me, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, like completely, like that's the worst way he could have responded, because he, completely sloughed off my criticism, my undue teenage criticism, and said thanks for being a fan. So Aranda Gadsden has definitely owned me online, and I'm not so mad about it, honestly.
It's January 99, Bills-Dolphins. This is Remember That Game, the podcast about sporting events that take you on a journey and maybe chart the path of the zeitgeist. I'm your host, Thomas Emerick, and my guest is Denny Carter, co-host of Living the Stream, owner of Draft Day Consultants, and a Dolphins fan since at least the second Clinton administration. Welcome, Denny.
Hey, Thomas. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about my former Dolphins fanhood.
And it's a podcast for both the people who know or wonder what a Bernie Parmalee is. So it's a podcast for a couple niches, I'm told, combines into a very large demo.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, you got at least 15 people who are wondering what a Bernie Parmalee is.
And Denny, my first question: with what kind of clarity do you remember where you were when the Dolphins hosted the Bills that fateful wild card weekend?
That's a great question. So, this was Marino's second to last year, if I remember correctly, because the next season was when they were basically executed by the Jaguars in the playoffs. And so I think so this is January 99. So this is the 98 season. So I would have been, at this point, in my family room, watching on a very crude big screen TV. It was like a monstrous thing from the 90s that my dad bought for some reason. Well, I know why, but and we were probably watching that together. Yeah.
I'm going to kind of lean on some of your expertise with this one here. From listening to your podcast, Living the Stream, I know this kind of played a significant role in your upbringing. Which NFL coach had the best head of hair in the 1990s?
There's only one answer to that, Thomas, and that's Jimmy Johnson. My dad has probably spent a decent percentage of his life talking about Jimmy Johnson's hair. Like, my dad's 66 or 65, and I would say that he's probably spent a total of 6 months out of that 65 years talking about Jimmy Johnson's hair. He was obsessed in the 80s and 90s with Jimmy Johnson's hair. Mostly because as he was losing his, Jimmy Johnson was keeping all of his. It looked like actually Jimmy Johnson was growing hair in the 90s.
His hair is only getting stronger, which gives hope for any of us who are hitting when we hit our 40s and 50s. We're like,
yeah. I mean, just on a personal level, I never really got the appeal because though he had a big thick head of hair, he always has cut it like it's 1972. And what I mean by that is that it's all the same length on the top and the sides, and it's poofed out everywhere. It just, he looks like he should be on the show Dallas. And I'm not even making a Cowboys joke. He actually just looks like he should be on that show.
Yeah, especially in that playoff game, Dolphins Bills. It's a very windy day, upper teens and the miles per hour winds. And his hair starts to look like Alec Baldwin's in the early seasons of 30 Rock. Yes. Which is...
Yeah, right. No, it's not horrible, but you're right. I remember when the wind would blow, you could see that Jimmy Johnson was physically uncomfortable with the way that his hair would be messed up. And I feel that pain. I mean, on a windy day, I actually angle my body so that it doesn't mess up my hair too badly.
Jimmy seems to have those thoughts on his mind during the game. When I was rewatching some of it, still looks like objectively good. But first half, there's not as much product in there as he wanted. The hair is down in front of it on his forehead. He comes out halftime, and it seemed kind of gelled hastily in different directions. And then when Eric Moulds catches a 30-yard pass in triple coverage on the sideline when Bills are driving for the tie, the camera cuts right to Johnson, and he's ready. He has his hand over his hair and has the hair in place immediately because he knows the camera's cutting to him after Eric Moulds has broken the postseason record.
Oh, did he break the record that day?
Yep, still stands.
What was it?
It was like 240, I think.
Oh, good God. That was the secondary anchored by Brock Marion, if I remember correctly.
Yep. And Patrick Surtain, Sam Madison, rookies.
Sam Madison, yeah.
And they had Terrell Buckley, too, who I guess more of a veteran than...
Yeah, he was a slot corner at the time, I think.
Okay, yeah. Buckley forced the fumble on Moulds. Like, first play of the game, Flutie hit Moulds for like a 60-yard pass, and Buckley knocked out the fumble on that play there. Maybe it goes differently. By quarter 4, Jimmy Johnson had his 4th different hairstyling, and it was finally totally right on that last Moulds catch to put the Bills in position to potentially go ahead.
So back to like the origins of this game. The Dolphins came in obviously as the home team. They had won the East, right? Is that
actually that's what I thought. There's so many things about this game that I thought, and then I was like looked and I was like, wait, what? The AFC East sent 4 playoff teams that season. They had 4 of the 6 playoff teams.
That's wild. So they had all the teams because it was just no. It was 5 teams back then.
Yeah, it's 3 divisions. I think 5 or 6 in each division.
Right, because it used to be Colts, Jets, Bills, Patriots, Dolphins, Bills. I'm sorry, I used Bills twice. Colts, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, Bills.
Yeah, the Colts and Banning went 3-13, and the rest of them just drove down the Colts and then did well out of division. In that division, you have 2 coaches who would spring a whole coaching tree of lib owners in Jimmy Johnson and Bill Parcells, and so, that are still here today. You got Mike Zimmer coming out of the Parcells tree, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the Dolphins, and Curtis Martin for the Jets. Between Jimmy Johnson and Bill Parcells, loved to run the ball. The only 2 of the 3 running backs that season with lower than 3.7 yards per carry to still get more than 200 carries. That would spring, Mike Zimmer, Bill Belichick. So you got Mike Zimmer, very high T. Mm-hmm. Bill Belichick is sometimes high T. Yeah. He's like, whatever you think my T level is, that's what I'm not. Like that. Yeah. The Jimmy Johnson tree, where you have Dave Wanstead coming out of that, I guess, and ended up taking over for Jimmy Johnson when he quit after the Jaguars game, right? And then during the Dave Wanstead period, is probably where your fandom fell off.
Well, yeah, but I believed in those Wanstead teams. I thought that the Dolphins made an incredible recovery from Jimmy Johnson bailing after his absolutely failed tenure with the team. And that's something that's obviously overlooked because Jimmy Johnson had a couple successful years in Dallas, and that's it for him. I'm not bitter at all. And then, you have Marino retiring, which thank God. I mean, he should have retired probably in like 1996, honestly. Even before that, really, probably with the Achilles, he should have retired. And they bring in Fiedler just for like the camp competition, basically, to the heir apparent. Heward was the heir apparent to Marino, and Heward crapped his pants so bad in the preseason that they were forced to start Fiedler. So they start Fiedler. They play really conservatively with Wanstead. They win 9 or 10 games every year. I believed in that team for a while, and then of course things really fell apart when they signed AJ Feely. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh yeah.
But they signed AJ Feely as like the answer at quarterback. Like okay, Fiedler didn't work out. We couldn't win more than one playoff. They won one playoff game with Fiedler. So they signed Feely, and Feely is an abomination. Okay, I'm talking about all-time worst quarterback play you've ever seen in your whole life. And so they had to actually tuck their tail between their legs, the Dolphins did, and bench Feely for Fiedler. And at that point, it was pretty much that whole Wanstead Jimmy Johnson era, was over. It took a nosedive.
Do you remember where you were when the Dolphins traded for Ricky Williams, and do you remember how much they traded for him? A running back entering his fourth season.
I did not care how much they traded because I was so excited because at the time, like everybody else in the 90s, I thought the only thing you need to win a Super Bowl is a great running back. A guy who can carry it 400 times and lead you to the promised land.
Pre-2004, it was like a little more credence to that.
Right. Oh, yeah. I guess this is not the 90s. Yeah, this is 04. And he was incredible, by the way.
Yeah. So imagine today a team trades for a running back injury-plagued, entering his fourth year, and they send 2 first-rounders and a fourth.
Wow. Wow, yeah. Well, actually, I think he came to the team in 02, by the way.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 02, yeah.
Yeah.
02, he goes there. The Saints, I guess, were kind of rebuilding in a way that's much more akin to the way some of the teams now do, including the Miami Dolphins. They kind of just broke everything down and were able to deal Williams for some draft picks. Mike Ditka had gotten fired from the Saints by that point. Mike Ditka was like a driving force in getting that trade to the Saints. And I do actually love that it happened because it gave us a surprisingly progressive magazine cover. This is the NFL in 1999 where Mike Ditka is holding Ricky Williams. Do you remember what Ricky Williams was wearing in this photo?
He was wearing a wedding dress.
Yeah, and the photographer said, he wanted to show how enamored Ditka was with Williams. And I was like, that's the perfect photo. They dealt so many draft picks to move up and get Ricky.
It was a great photo on a lot of levels. One, I think it showed that Ricky Williams basically didn't care what anyone thought about him and was subversive in a lot of ways that you didn't really know unless you were really, I guess, following him closely in college. It also was, comical on a level because you have the most alpha male of all time, Mike Ditka, the highest T, dangerously high testosterone levels, off the charts, really. And he's sitting there with his prized football player wearing a wedding dress. I mean, Mike Ditka is a guy that Miller Lite recruited in the 80s. To do, not recruited, but paid, obviously, to do ads for them on TV to make it okay for insecure men to drink light beer because light beer was considered a woman's drink until that point.
Oh my God, that was Miller. I forgot. So he put the T in Miller Lite. He had fun with the idea. He's like, I traded war chests for Ricky Williams. And then, Ricky Williams gets traded. The Dolphins to trade their own war chest to get a running back right before the rule changes in 2004. Passing the ball getting easier at that point. 2005, Wanstead, I guess he resigned or was let go. But right before that, to keep the high T rolling, Wanstead, who actually was Jimmy Johnson's defensive coordinator with the 90s Cowboys. I guess they're basically trying to do the Cowboys dynasty on the beach. So Jimmy Johnson has Wanstead replace him as head coach. So there's that Williams trade. Then where the Anquan Boldin draft, he was available in the second round. Rick Spielman was the Dolphins general manager at the time. He would go on to the Vikings. Rick Spielman wanted Anquan Boldin. Dave Wanstead, somehow as the coach, had power to overrule his GM on draft picks.
Wow.
And made them take a linebacker who would only play a couple seasons. Mm-hmm. Basically, you have just the high T steamroll the Dolphins in the early 2000s at that point. And that was, I guess, one of the last straws in them losing, both Wanstead and then Spielman just wanting out, I'm guessing.
Right. So back to the 99 game. So you have the Bills. The Bills are not the Bills of the Super Bowl years. This is basically a totally different roster, except for Thurman Thomas is still on the team, right?
Yep. In that game, he breaks the playoff touchdown record, and
okay.
there's no ceremony or anything. They don't stop the game. Instead, it's just a quick shot to him flicking off the other team, and then ABC going to commercial as fast as they can.
There was real, talking about that game, the hatred that the two teams had for each other remained. And when you're a team, a fan of a team, I think that you can, and a lot of people listening, I'm sure, have been there. You get so fired up in the heat of the moment, in the heat of competition, of rooting for your side to win, that you say things that you later regret and really make you call into question yourself.
Yeah.
Like the calling, your sanity or morality. You say honestly the worst things that you can possibly think of about these players. And I found myself doing that with the Bills more than any team. I despised the Bills like no other. I actively rooted against them no matter who they were playing. It didn't matter. I loved, when I was a kid, I loved those two Cowboys-Bills Super Bowls because it was a total humiliation for the guys that had absolutely owned my favorite team and my favorite player, Dan Marino, over and over and over. Marino never, ever got the best of the Bills. They always got him.
Marino would have one last laugh on this day. Do you remember where you were when the Bills went into Miami, AFC Championship, knocked out the Bills on the way to the Super Bowl?
You mean the Bills went into Miami and knocked out the Dolphins?
Yeah.
I was watching that. I was sick, and I was watching it in my bedroom by myself, and feeling more sick by the minute because the Dolphins had a really good team that year. I think they actually, for once, the Dolphins had a pretty good defense and a decent running game. Usually it was just an awful defense and Marino throwing it 50 times a game. And if they didn't score 30 points, they would lose. So that was devastating, yeah.
Actually, I'm looking now, 1992 playoffs, so January 93. Yep. And then they go on, get smashed by the Cowboys and Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, right.
Now on your side, in 1999, you also have Jimmy Johnson versus Doug Flutie, which the replay of the Hail Flutie from Boston College versus Miami. Bills-Dolphins rivalry. Bills knocking the Dolphins out of the playoffs 3 times in that decade so far.
Yeah, man, that was a rough time because you just want. I remember the Dolphins played the Bills on Monday night once, and my dad took me to a bar, which is very responsible. And I was sitting there probably inhaling secondhand smoke by the second. But no matter, we really thought the Dolphins could pull it out, and they did not. They did not do it. The Bills just continually won because they always had the better overall team. The Bills had great special teams. They had an incredible running game. Went back when a running game really mattered a lot. They had a quarterback who rarely made mistakes. And the Dolphins were never really designed like that because they had Marino, and I think that they designed their team around 1986 Marino, not older, decrepit Marino, which was unfortunate that they were still trying to use that formula in the late 90s, even but like you said with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, it was frustrating, it was infuriating at times to watch them hand the ball off to him 30 times a game for 95 yards, but that obviously was some sort of nod to the fact that Marino can't do it anymore, and his arm strength had diminished. Definitely his mobility was laughable at that point. It was Drew Bledsoe-esque. And so they decided to just hammer it with this smallish, running back Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It was not fun to watch.
If DraftKings was around then, this is a segment I want to get running on this podcast called "Who's Popping in Your Model?" And Oronde Gadsden was popping in my model. I think Dan Marino, I actually might give him a little more credit. I think like Tom Brady's probably the lowest priced quarterback for Wild Card Weekend. I think Dan Marino might be a little more closer to mid-price. They were still piling up passing yards a bit. Like he wasn't chucking it like he used to, but I think he was like around 11th, 12th in like pass yards per game. And they had a couple weeks prior beaten the eventual Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos with 4 touchdowns by Marino.
Right, on Monday night. That was amazing. God, that was a great game. I freaked out because my friend at school was a longtime Broncos and Elway truther. And so it was the one time I got to gloat because obviously his guy had already, by 99, his guy had already won 2 Super Bowls and retired. And my guy was a shadow of his former great self, desperately trying to make the playoffs every year. So that one game, man, that was amazing. A little known receiver, real skinny, tall dude, I think caught 2 of those touchdowns in that game. It was pretty incredible. Can I tell you a story real quick about Oronde Gadsden?
Absolutely.
All right, I'm not proud of this, and I don't even know if I've ever said this on air.
Oh.
But I was really deeply into my Dolphins fanhood in 2001 and basically the start of the Wanstead era. I really, really believed. I used to stream Wanstead press conferences before streaming was even really a thing. My computer was going to explode when I was watching these things, but it didn't matter to me. I wanted to hear everything that the coach had to say. So Oronde Gadsden had dropped 2 critical passes late in the game against the Chargers that year in 01 or 02. And I found his email address. I somehow found he had a personal website where he sold clothing, I think. And I found the email and I sent him an email from my AOL account, which was called fin5308721@aol.com.
So many numbers.
So many. And in it, I told him that, while you are my favorite player on the team, which I don't know if that was actually true or not, but I said it. I said, I can't believe you dropped those 2 passes. I think you really need to work on your hands.
Oh, wow. Well, you started with the honey, and then...
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm 17 at the time. First of all, what a brat. Honestly, if I could go back in time, I would absolutely slap myself across the face for writing that email. He writes back,
"Oh,
thanks, man. Thanks for being a fan." Signed, Oronde.
Oh.
And so he totally owned me, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, completely, that's the worst way he could have responded because he, completely sloughed off my criticism, my undue teenage criticism, and said thanks for being a fan. So Oronde Gadsden has definitely owned me online, and I'm not so mad about it, honestly.
I mean, yeah, it could be a healthy process getting owned online, restorative, and that's cool. Hear such a good guy because he was such a good story too. And I think I was reading earlier that playoff game, against the Bills. That wasn't just one extra game Gadsden was playing that year. He had actually played the Arena League season already that year. So the playoffs was basically his 3rd season of the 1998-99 year.
Right. So he was one of these receivers that doesn't really exist anymore in the NFL, where he was slow. He was super slow. But basically he would just post up. He was huge and he had big hands, and he would just post up smaller cornerbacks, and Marino would toss it up, and Gadsden would come down with it more often than not. And that's the only thing he did. He couldn't outrun anybody. Had no quickness at all. And listen, I'm a tape grinder before anything, so I know these things. First and foremost, I grind that film. But it was funny because it was just obviously their plan was Oronde, go out, box out the dude. I'm gonna throw it high. You go catch it.
Oh yeah, I mean your Twitter bio does say tape grinder, father, husband.
No, you forgot son, father, husband.
Oh, yes.
You got to name all the relations that have to do with your gender. I love it.
Father, son, husband, male cousin.
Yeah, male cousin, yeah, right. Guy friend. Oh, man. Oh.
So Gadsden, as you're saying, the guy Marino would lob it up to. 13 seconds in the half, Marino tests out that arm from about his own 19-yard line and lets go of it. I think it goes about 60 yards in the air almost. Really? Comes down, snagged by Oronde Gadsden. As he's falling down, it seems like he thinks there's no timeouts left when they do, and they can call the timeout, kick the field goal. He throws it behind his head to O.J. McDuffie. And then McDuffie tries to throw it behind his head as he's getting tackled. Doesn't get rid of it. Dolphins are able to call timeout before the half.
No, oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I don't remember that, but that's wild. I can't believe Marino could throw it that far.
6 years earlier, he could probably throw it an extra 15, 20 maybe.
I used to have an O.J. McDuffie jersey for whatever reason, by the way.
Oh, yeah. And also, that 98... I believe he was the leader in receptions.
For what? The NFL?
I think for the NFL. I think it was 90. I think it was 90.
Yeah, look that up real quick while I'll keep going. You look that up. OJ
can't
McDuffie
be right, but
was he was just, I think he was just basically lined up in the slot and would just catch a bunch of shortish passes. I was wondering if you meant led the team or led the.
Yeah, so I looked at it earlier. It said 90 led the league, and I was like, that can't be right. Just because I have my 2019 lens on, I'm like, no way. I'm looking at it now again. 90 led the league, 4 ahead of Marshall Faulk.
In 1999.
98 NFL receiving.
98.
At PF Ref. O.J. McDuffie, 165 targets, also led the league.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Damn, really? I mean, I get, I wasn't playing fantasy at the time. I didn't even know what fantasy football was in the late 90s, but that's something. I did not know that.
I think Gadsden and the rookie, or Lamar Thomas, look splitting, but way behind McDuffie in total targets.
Yeah, Lamar Thomas was that guy who caught 2 touchdowns against Denver when the Dolphins beat the Broncos.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so Gadsden laterals to McDuffie. The Dolphins, this is how crazy the end of the first half was. Dolphins are up 7-6. Bills have the ball on the Dolphins' 5-yard line. Flutie throws a pick to Marion. Marion returns it to the 20. Eric Moulds pulls his face mask almost 180. And Marion was fortunately fine after that. 15-yard penalty, Marino bomb. Olindo Murray chip shot field goal off the upright. Goes in a half, 7-6 Dolphins.
Oh,
Jimmy Johnson gets some product in his hair. Very windy day. Totally different hair in the second half, but still not right for another quarter and a half.
Well, I mean, look, once the wind is blowing hard, it doesn't really matter how much stuff you put in it. It's just gonna blow. It's gonna like solidify in one direction or the other. Like something about Mary, something like that.
Yeah. He was fighting an uphill battle, and he has a high standard to keep. The head of hair of the 90s.
Yeah.
So, second half, Bills end up railing from a deficit. They're down 10 with 3 minutes. They get down to the goal line. Andre Reed is just short of the goal line, gets up really quickly, mad that I guess he wasn't called a touchdown, bumps into the ref, who was also running toward him and kind of above him, gets thrown out of the game. So a Hall of Fame receiver gets a 15-yard penalty thrown out of the game when they're on the goal line. They have to settle for a field goal. Can you think of anything that's happened like that since? Hall of Fame player getting thrown out of the game in such a key situation on the goal line.
No, man, that's wild. And now that you mention it, I do remember being really, really pumped up at that point because Reed was a fiery dude, like, and so hating the Bills, and you automatically gravitate to hating the most pumped up, most psyched up dude on that team, and that was usually Reed. And at that point, I guess Molds had overtaken him as the number one, but he was still not my favorite guy.
I think Molds actually went into that game as second in yards per reception, above Randy Moss.
Jeez.
Yeah, and second and ahead of Randy Moss in receiving yards and yards per target. Molds was balling out. He was probably 88K. He could have been Michael Thomas territory on Vandulo DraftKings.
He was. I was thinking that McDuffie might be a guy who was somewhat, like maybe not as high priced as you might think, but if he saw 165 targets, he would have been priced way up there.
It was getting that Edelman.
Yeah.
Like second, like high second tier. So for who's popping in your model, second man, I'm trying to make a thing if it sticks. So I'll give you a few guys heading into this weekend. On Sunday, capping the weekend, you have Favre versus Young. They're going to be priced up with Antonio Freeman, Jerry Rice. Terrell Owens might make a big play at the end of the game. I don't know. And then you have Jimmy Smith, the Jaguars, going against Pete Carroll's Patriots defense on Sunday. Who out of those guys, who's popping in your model?
I think oh my God, I can't remember the Jags quarterback's name.
Mark Brunell.
Mark Brunell. I want to say Steve for some reason. Steve Brunell, his brother Steve Brunell. No, Mark Brunell. I think I may have gravitated toward. I think my model liked Mark Brunell because he had that Konami code rushing upside, right?
Yeah, he did. But an aging veteran was second among quarterbacks in rushing yards that season behind Steve McNair, and he plays that weekend. Can you guess who that was?
An aging veteran was second in passing yards?
Or in QB rushing yards.
QB rushing yards. An aging veteran. I mean, are we talking about Steve Young?
Yep. Second in rushing yards
Wow.
in 1998. QB rushing yards.
I loved Steve Young back in the day. I always loved watching that guy play. In fact, I got into football in the very twilight of Joe Montana's time with the San Francisco. And as a kid, I would watch Montana, and then I watched Young, and I would be like, who wants this bum Montana? I mean, this guy's so washed up. Get him out of here. Get this guy Steve Young in here. Who likes Montana? My dad used to be like, you can't say that about Joe Montana. And I was like, this guy's terrible. Just watch him. He's no good. Steve Young is way better than him.
Please don't say that in front of other people.
Yeah.
Please don't say that in front of guests.
Yeah. They'll know they'll know how low your T is.
And then in the Saturday night game, you have another passer who's actually I think third or fourth in the league in passing yards that season. He's visiting the Dallas Cowboys as 7-point underdogs, so it's probably gonna get a lot of volume at Cowboys. This quarterback was in his second year out of Arizona State.
Oh, Jake Plummer.
Yep. Jake Plummer goes in, 7-point dogs. They murder the Cowboys.
Oh, for Arizona. I keep thinking Denver for him, but no, Arizona.
So Jake Plummer has knocked Tom Brady out of the playoffs. I think that was 2005. And Troy Aikman.
Are you serious? Jake Plummer with the Broncos beat the Patriots?
Yeah, it was it was the game where I think Broncos were actually at home. And there was that play where, like, I think maybe it was it wasn't Champ Bailey. It was another Broncos corner, ran back, like a turnover, and and it was Daniel Graham chased him down like 80 yards and knocked the ball out.
It was Bailey. I think it was Bailey.
Oh, was it Bailey? Okay.
And he was stripped, and it was clearly out before he crossed the goal line, and it should have been a touchback, and the Patriots would have gone on to win that game if that had been called correctly. I think that was before instant replay.
Yeah, I remember that being like, and just at the end of that game, being kind of shocked that Jake Plummer had knocked Tom Brady out of the playoffs. And I was doing some research today. I was like, oh, wait, Jake Plummer's also knocked Troy Aikman out of the playoffs, basically ended the Cowboys dynasty. I guess it was more the Cardinals defense. So they, as big underdogs, win the late game on that Saturday after Dolphins-Bills. And while Dolphins and while Cardinals are getting ready to upset the Cowboys, the Dolphins have a celebration in their locker room that ends up being pretty upsetting. Do you remember what it was?
Man, I really don't.
So seems like it was just something just purely out of ignorance instead of malice. But Doug Flutie had finally found some NFL success that year. Decided to sell Flutie Flakes, or like basically Frosted Flakes, except money goes to autism research. Son's autistic. In the post-game celebration, Jimmy Johnson has the team stomp on a box of Flutie Flakes and has to send an apology letter. And the Dolphins spokesperson said that there was nothing meant by it, but Doug Flutie was pretty upset and said that it felt like Jimmy Johnson was stepping on his son.
Oh, my God.
So the most embarrassing way to celebrate a playoff win I think I've ever heard.
That is really, I did not know that. That is very high tea and also incredibly rude. But again, if Jimmy Johnson actually did not know that it was to raise money for autism, I think it's okay. In fact, the concept of making a cereal of yourself for yourself, is I think worthy of being mocked if you end up losing, if it's not for that good cause. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm assuming if you have no idea what the any of the funds are going for, and I doubt he did. Like it's almost like a Curb Your Enthusiasm situation where Larry all of a sudden realizes he's an asshole, but had no idea until the end of the episode.
Yes, it really is. Oh my God, I can actually hear the music and zooming in on Jimmy Johnson's face when they say, "Jimmy, Flutie Flakes funds go to autism research."
Bum, bum, bum,
Oh man.
And so you had to close out with a little just aftermath, and then one 1999 trivia question. I think it'll be right up your alley. But basically, the next week, Dolphins get murdered by the Denver Broncos. Yeah. 38-3. It's so bad. Jimmy Johnson says, "I'm done." This changes his mind, so he actually resigns and goes through the whole resignation thing, or at least like publicly. And then Dan Marino begs Jimmy Johnson to come back, and Wayne Huizenga, the owner, says, "I'll get your defensive coordinator from Riddell's days, Dave Wanstead, and he can be your heir apparent. Please come back." They get Jimmy to come back for one more year, and they somehow get to the second round, the division round, summarily executed by the Jags. Jimmy is retired.
They beat Rick Meyer and the Seahawks in round one in Seattle. For some reason, they were so bad they had to go to the Seahawks, and then they went to Jacksonville. And can I tell you one thing about that Jags game?
Yeah.
By the winter of 2000, I had discovered girls, and so nice. I actually spent most of that game talking with a girl I liked in a ski lodge during a school trip that we took, watching the game out of the corner of my eye. And for the first time in my whole fan life, as my, at that point, 9 or 10 years as a fan of the Dolphins, I didn't care. I didn't care what was happening. Wow. I saw that they were down 31-0 or something at halftime, and I didn't care because my interest was elsewhere, and it was the first time that I realized, oh, I can be emotionally functional and okay even if the Dolphins lose.
Wow.
And my memories of that game are actually pretty good because I was so excited to be able to get to talk to this girl in a one-on-one situation in the ski lodge. Now, this is not a euphemism at all. Okay. I'm not trying to play it safe here. We were actually just sitting there talking over hot chocolate while this game played.
Oh
Okay?
wow! It's not like the ski lodge in the Last Christmas music video. There's no hanky panky.
No, oh god, yeah. Dolly Parton and Kenny Loggins, is it? No.
Wait, Last Christmas.
Wait, last Christmas. Sorry, I thought you were talking about the one where they're talking about the ski lodge in that Dolly Parton song.
Oh.
But Last Christmas, George Michael and the Lady in Red. No, it wasn't like that. It was very innocent, very very innocent teenage thing. But I was watching my Dolphins get massacred by the Jaguars and not caring. It was pretty great.
That's a beautiful coming of age tale.
It kind of was.
And my last one, a little piece of 90s pop culture. 99 was the end of a decade. I don't know if they had as much end of decade content as we had the past few weeks. And Denny, you're a science fiction novelist, and I read a book you're working on. Thought it was chilling, deeply moving, fantastic. And I'm sure, you're probably you'll definitely know each of these films. As of January 1999, 3 sci-fi films released in the 90s occupied the top 9 and highest grossing sci-fi movies of all time. Can you guess those 3? And I can give you a hint if you want one.
Well, let me try to guess. So we got The Matrix.
I think that...
No.
I think that was... I'm not sure if that came out... I think it was 99 or 2000, but January 99. Was it out yet?
It hadn't come out yet. You're right. Okay, so you got Terminator.
Terminator Judgment Day was number 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 sci-fi movies in the 90s.
And these 3 sci-fi movies have a tie.
Okay. Well, okay, so wait.
Or a tie between them.
Independence Day?
Yep.
So the tie might be Will Smith. Men in Black?
Nope. Men in Black, I think, was just outside.
God dang. All right, give me a hint.
So the hint is they all feature an actor who had a knack for playing roles where he would get sassy about science.
Oh, Jeff Goldblum.
Yep.
No. Yes?
Yep. Yeah. So, Independence Day.
Okay. I mean, I was going to say the one with Bruce Willis and the asteroid, but I guess that's not one.
I'm wondering if maybe sci-fi might be like a loose definition they were using for this.
Oh, so Jurassic Park.
Yep, 1 and 2.
So that's 1 and 2, and then
Independence Day.
Oh, so Jurassic Park 1 and 2, and then okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Shout out to Data is Beautiful YouTube channel, releases these great data visualizations, and I was watching that the other day, and I was like, oh crap, that top 9 there, everything from the 90s, Jeff Goldblum was in.
Jurassic Park 2 is not good, but the first one's great. They make Jeff Goldblum so incredibly handsome in part 2. It's almost like mind blowing. I mean, he's a great looking guy anyway, but he comes on screen in that leather jacket and he's like peak Goldblum. I'm like, oh my god, this guy is the best looking guy I've ever seen in my life. I cannot believe. And because in the first one, he's handsome in like a nerdy way, but they did whatever they did to him for part 2. It blew me away. I was like, is that really the same guy? I remember as a kid being like, who's that guy? Where did he come from?
Yeah, he was rocking that leather jacket. And some of those I mean, Jurassic Park 1 has some looks that I think need to come back.
Laura Dern's khaki pants pulled up to like past her belly button. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe not. I can only speak to the men's clothing. Probably pretty out of depth on the Laura Dern. But yeah, Jeff Goldblum with those glasses, with the leather jacket, and the right amount of hair product, owning the 90s.
Too cool. Honestly, it's like I can't even like look at the screen like straight on because it's too much coolness. I could never be as cool as Jeff Goldblum now or then. Really, I mean, now he makes jazz albums. Are you kidding me? I mean, like this is like so cool. It should be illegal. You know, I love that guy.
This has been another episode of Remember That Game. Please rate, review, subscribe, and check out more episodes.